Brenda Willis of the Willis clan, the matriarch of this family of Irish performers. They do traditional Irish music all around the world. They're on the Opry. They were on America's Got Talent and almost won. There was a whole reality TV show about this family and what they do. A very talented musical family. She is also the head of the Music City Irish Festival, and she would produce a number of shows for this festival. Galen Fott, who was involved with the theatrical piece that was brought from New York to Nashville, had a meeting with her and said, well, you don't have to bring people from out of town. There's a lot of talent in town that can be used. And we talked about the different theater companies, and also there's a puppet company at the Nashville Public Library, Wishington Productions, and that really sparked her interest. And so she approached me about doing a version of Gulliver's Travels, written by Jonathan Swift, who was Irish. So she commissioned the piece, and we had a certain amount of time to put it together. Now, Gulliver's Travels, unbeknownst to many people, is not a children's book. It really was written for adults. It was this political satire written 200 years ago. You know, if you watch any children's version of Gulliver's Travels, mostly they focus on the Lilliputians and the famous image of Gulliver being tied down by the Lilliputians, and then he lives among them for a while. But really, Gulliver's Travels isn't just physical. It isn't just going from place to place to place, which is part of it, but it's also his personal journey of discovery in each place he goes to. And that's why I really wanted to go to more than just the land of Lilliputians, because you're missing a big chunk of the whole point of the Gulliver's Travels is discovery, personal discovery, and then these crazy lands. Also, there are political aspects of it that are really an important part of the story, and I felt that we needed to stay true to that. And so I went to Kent Oliver, and I told him, who's the director of the library, that this was our next show and that there are political elements. And he knew that. He said, well, that was one of my favorite books when I was young. And I said, but it has these things, this sort of, about gunpowder, about war, about the cruelty of humans, about cruelty to animals. All these elements are in this book. And they have to be in the puppet show. And he's like, do it. And so you do find these themes as he travels around, because that's part of his personal journey. In the book, he goes to live with the horses. And when he gets back home, he doesn't hang around people because he can't stand being around people, because he's learned so much about the human condition, about the cruelty of man, that he can't stand to be with humans. So he stays with the horses, but then he finds his way, and and this lesson is he understands. He's able to understand those who aren't him. He's able to look past his own selfish wants and desires to see other things. And that is ultimately the ending, which was the hardest part to do, to write in the show. I just rewrote it and rewrote it and rewrote it because I didn't want it to have a happy ending like most of these Gulliver's Travels versions do. They tack on a happy ending because it's for kids. But that is not true to the story. It is not a happy ending, and the lesson then is all wrong. Brenda's son, Jeremiah, very talented musician, was picked to write the music for the show. So I had a script and I had lyrics and things like that. And I sent it to him. And he came back with wonderful songs in a very traditional Irish flavor. They're really great, and they really drive the story. It's so wonderful to listen to just the music. In fact, the entire floating island scene is just a song. When do you think the world will end? I think it'll happen on Monday. Any day now, any day the world will end. This is this musical piece that says all these terrible things, and everybody claps along because the music is so great. But if you listen to the words, it's a whole different thing going on. It was fully realized when he showed up. And he brought all these instruments and all this music and all these ideas. And then he had some of his brothers and sisters come in and add instrumentation to it. And so we have this glorious soundtrack. It's just so wonderful. The Yahoo song, the Yahoos would be really hard to explain, but the Yahoo song does it. And we had it, and it's the only piece that has an electric guitar. It's all these traditional instruments, but I wanted a really rude sound for the Yahoo's entrance, and so suddenly there's an electric guitar, which is completely out of place, and that's why it works for the Yahoo song.
Yahoo, Yahoo. Yahoo, Yahoo. Yahoo, Yahoo.
These other two louder or whatever, you just hit their number. So 1, 2, 3, you would hit 2. A few years ago, we started tossing around this idea of having a full production studio here at NPL. We presented that idea to Kent Oliver, essentially making the case that being able to record professionally audio and video content, editing that content, and making that content available online would not only support our current programming that we have in place, but allow us to expand our services. Podcast series, we could develop in-house documentaries, the live events that we record, such as author talks. Those could be recorded and edited more quickly and posted on our YouTube page. Well, we received nothing but support from Kent and the library. And so we now sit in a state-of-the-art recording facility able to provide the services that we had hoped to provide. One of the most exciting services that we're able to provide is the ability to record the soundtracks for the puppet productions that are developed by Brian Hull and his team. For Gulliver's Travels, we were able to break in our studio, so to speak. So a critical part of the soundtrack is the sound design. It creates the mood for the scenes. The Lilliputians are these tiny characters that needed tiny voices. And so we were able to take the actors' performances that we recorded and digitally manipulate those to a pitch that was perfect for the puppet.
I am your king, and you must do as I command. It is my desire to rule the entire world.
The world?
No, not just the world.
The universe! Everyone must break their eggs on the little end. I have decreed it, so kill them all! Do it now!
On the other extreme, the Yahoos needed these big, huge voices. And we were able to take the actors' performances for those and lower them 4 or 5 octaves.
Yahoo, Yahoo. Yahoo, Yahoo.
Yahoo, Yahoo.
Yahoo, Yahoo. Yahoo, Yahoo.
We wouldn't have been able to do that had we not had expertise on board. And we were really fortunate to get Matthew Cox, who is a local audio engineer and producer. And he had extensive experience with sound design. And so he was able to bring in all of the sounds needed, and Brian would join him in this control room, and they would create the mood for each scene that you see together. He's literally right down the hallway. And that is completely the opposite situation than he was used to dealing with. All previous performances, the soundtracks were recorded at a studio here in Nashville that was charging by the hour, and that really puts pressure on the actors and it hinders the creative process. Here, the actors came in with no time limit because there was no cost involved. It's very expensive to record at a studio here in Nashville, but we now can do that here in this building, and we took advantage of that.
The Lilliputians, first of all, were, you have an issue when the puppets are so small. So a Gulliver is an actor, and that's the idea, is an actor who interacts with the Lilliputians. So if you use a traditional marionette on strings, you would have issues. So he sort of took an Italian design of marionettes where there's a rod that goes right through the head of the puppets, and you're able to control those Lilliputians. And some very cute scenes with him hopping onto his hand, or they push out a little cart, and there's a whole group of Lilliputians that cheer and yell as this goes on. And then there's the awful king who comes popping through a porthole in the set. So the set is a wonderful design. I had done a sort of a sketch of it, and then Morgan Matins makes it better. And it's sort of like this ship design. There's portholes and boxes, and painted by Ruben Torres with Brandon Boyd, and built by William Kirkpatrick in our shop, and it's a really, really great design. And Morgan Matins is a big part of that, and Mary Tanner, all the whole cast and crew. Pete Carden built a tiny ship that gets captured. One interesting thing, because Morgan Matins is so good at sculpting, whoever is playing Gulliver, the marionette looks like that actor. So we come up with a way, using magnets, to have interchangeable faces. So whoever is playing Gulliver, that becomes the face of the puppet. And a very clever way to do it. And the idea, as with all of our puppet shows, is to give a taste to the audience so that the kids will read the book. In fact, one place, the puppet truck took Gulliver's Travels to the school, and when the puppeteers are dressed in the clothes of the characters, and they come out, and all the kids giggle. This is middle school, 6th grade, but by the end of the show, they're into it. And the librarian said they all went to the library to get copies of the book, which is our intention, our goal is to make them check it out,